Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com, and in this video we're looking at a watch from Seiko, the SPB155, also known as the Baby Alpinist. So if you're new to this channel, this is where we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com, as an authorized dealer. So in this video, I'm actually going to be kicking it off to my colleague, Danny Milton. He's very passionate about the Baby Alpinist, loves the Baby Alpinist, so I'm gonna have him go through the review here today. So in this video, deep dive on the timepiece, final points of consideration at the end, but also throughout Danny's review, if you have further questions or looking to buy this watch, check out the link in the description down below to the product page. But without further ado, I'll hand it off to Danny and let's take a closer look at the watch.
What makes a field watch? And is an explorer's watch the same as a field watch? Is a mountaineering watch even the same as that? I wouldn't necessarily call this, or rather these, age-old questions. Instead, they're an intellectual conundrum I've personally faced being a fan of a certain format of watches. Many who know me will also be sure to know I have a certain proclivity towards Rolex. I once wrote something of a definitive treatise on the Rolex Explorer reference 14270, the now neo-vintage watch that was born right at the start of the 1990s and has since served as the template for all explorers to come. Its 36mm size, legible dial, and overall no-nonsense field watch format has made it one of the best watch designs of all time. But it's also not really a field watch, is it? It was born as a marketing exercise in the wake of Sir Edmund Hillary's summiting of Everest alongside Tenzing Norgay. It's an explorer's watch, one with alpine roots. Speaking of alpine, we cannot mention the word without invoking one of the most well-known, attainable icons of the 1990s and 2000s, the Seiko Alpinist. But let's go back even further, to the late 1950s and early 60s, when Seiko launched the small 35mm Laurel Alpinist, a design that was revived by the brand in 2021. Fast forward from the 1950s to 1995, and Seiko released what is now a familiar format via the SCVF009. This had the Alpinist text printed on the dial in red, and introduced that inner compass bezel that we now know today. It was followed by a now cult classic watch, the SARB or SARB 017 in 2006, which continued the green dial, dual crown, inner compass bezel, and followed more closely to the now contemporary SPB121 Prospex Land model. It was a cult watch and remains a cult watch, but the cult is large. This now accepted Alpinist design presents a love it or hate it format because of the green dial. Now, you might be asking, how am I going to stick the landing and tie the Rolex Explorer to the Seiko Alpinist? Well, the simplest way would be mountains. The correct way would be to bring up a certain Alpinist offshoot launched by Seiko in 2017. Yes, the Baby Alpinist SPB155, which took the green motif and carved its own trail up the mountain. I own the SPB155 and have owned it for going on 5 years. It's a very curious watch because, to me, it's not just a more straightforward alternative to the Seiko Alpinist proper, but one of the truest explorer alternatives I've ever come across. And I mean that. Today we will be looking at this explorer's watch. Its 38mm sizing, its over-engineered dial for the money, and I mean that fully as a compliment, and what it's been like to live with a field watch meets explorer's watch meets explorer alternative. So let's get into this watch more in depth. The 38mm diameter, with a height of 12.9mm and a well-proportioned lug-to-lug of 46mm, makes for a really attainably priced explorer's watch. This case offers what I would call an over-engineered 200 meters of water resistance, including a push-pull crown, making this as useful as a diver despite its field watch looks. Putting this one on gives you the feel of the vintage meets modern wearability of the brushed and polished steel case, coupled with the 3-link oyster-style bracelet, complete with a twin-trigger signed clasp that is small enough as to not interfere with either the wear or fit experience. 38mm seems to be the universally accepted sweet spot size these days, and honestly, I get it. In many ways, the case diameter of this watch preserves the proportionality of a smaller size, but adding just enough presence to make it a true contemporary choice. On wrist, this watch just disappears in all the right ways. It has a lightness that reminds me of a vintage watch, but also a sturdiness that gives the wearer a real sense of confidence in its overall reliability. I mean, this is a Seiko after all. These things just work. Now, one area where some are likely to point to as an indicator of a potential lack of refinement is the bracelet, and not for the reasons you think. I mean, we have a nicely finished brushed bracelet with a milled clasp, and overall, this is your higher end Seiko fare, but it does not taper at all. For me, this is not a concern, and it is something I did not notice once when wearing it. Luckily, this has 20 millimeters of lug width, meaning that if you do take issue with the bracelet taper, there is no shortage of strap options for you, and this watch looks great on a strap. The dial is where this watch looks more like a $4,000 proposition than a sub $1,000 one. I mean, really, I have seen watches 5 times the price deliver dials of a far lesser quality, but that's not the point I'm trying to make here. As an owner of this watch myself, I continue to find the look of it mesmerizing, and that is all due to the combination of how the dial works against the case. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's address this dial head on. Much like the OG Alpinist, it brings the green coloration to the forefront, though the layout is far more simplified. You won't see any compass indications, and Seiko has opted for a printed dial rather than one with applied markers. So in a way, this is an Explorer 1016-esque watch in that regard. Okay, enough Rolex comparisons. The dial has an ombre, smoked, fumé effect, whereby it goes from a deep black to a deep green. But the color is only half the equation, because as you turn the watch in different light, you then see that it is a tastefully crafted, matte texture that brings the design to life depending on how you look at it. The design utilizes a railroad-style outer track, which moves towards the larger hour markers that alternate between painted arrows and Arabic numerals positioned at an angle, very similar to the original Alpinist. The main difference being that the original watch used gold tone applied markers, where this uses painted markers with a hint of faux patina. But don't worry, the Seiko logo is still applied in that gold tone. And the vintage effect continues as there are small dotted lume plots, again, a nod to vintage design, which shine nicely, dare I say elegantly. Overall, this dial is a masterclass in the intersection of quality and good design. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and the watch over-delivers as a result, which is always a good thing. And I sure am glad that the cathedral hands were carried over from the original Alpinist, because it just gives that extra oomph of toolish charm. The 6R35 movement is now a familiar player in this price segment for Seiko. While it is finished in a utilitarian style, it does feature some subtle waves on the signed rotor and clean machine brushing on the bridges. These are flourishes which are on display via the exhibition caseback. The SPB155 is effectively the least expensive model to house this movement, only bolstering its value proposition. Naturally, one of the things you'll hear people bemoan is that the 6R35 caliber is quoted for an accuracy of +25 to -15 seconds per day. Many Seiko movements are quoted this way, but the truth is that they are almost always a bit better than their stated specs might indicate. Think of these as conservative estimates. Plus, regulation is straightforward if necessary by any capable watchmaker, which should make this something of a non-issue. Now let's jump into some of the pros and cons, and I'll start with the cons first. For some, the con will be the lack of taper in the bracelet. For others, the existence of a date window at 3 o'clock. And for others still, the lack of a signed crown. For me, none of these are deal breakers, but I would have liked to have seen a signed crown. In the pro camp, this is some of the best execution of vintage meets modern I have ever seen in this price segment. It scratches that Explorer itch for me, and the dome sapphire crystal is an added quality plus that, while picking up reflection, also gives some vintagey distortion. The 38mm size is pitch perfect. If the Alpinist was never your bag because it was too quirky, the Baby Alpinist might just be the answer. As an entry point to a premium Seiko caliber tier, with good finishing both on the case and movement, as well as a dial that sings, this watch sits perfectly in an often mishandled segment. Is it cheap? No. But it also doesn't break the bank, while providing a sense of style and purpose that could make this a potential one watch for life option. And I find that so very cool. Back to you, Teddy.
All right, guys, that's all we have for this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Really do appreciate that. That helps us out a lot here on the channel. And also, if you are in the market for the Baby Alpinist, it is available on TeddyBaldassarre.com. TeddyBaldassarre.com is an authorized dealer for all the brands that we carry. Every purchase comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. Also, if you have any questions about the watches we have for sale, reach out to one of my colleagues on live chat. We're on live chat 18 hours a day. Feel free to send us a message. We'd love to help you out. Also, how we're able to produce content every single day is through selling watches on our site. So if you are in the market for a watch, we'd absolutely love to have your business. Allow us to keep doing what we're doing here, and we love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.